Hey there, guys. This is a fan with too much time, and here I am for the Q&A and after talk that I had already made it for the past video. And it's funny because in that after talk I go through all the things I'm going to talk about here, and a bit more because I'm going to give it its own dedicated video. But what's funny is that this production, this video here was like the test. Like for me, like if I was gonna drop this series, it would have been on this video because, oh my god! And then on top of that, the aftertalk gets junked. You guys don't understand. Let me explain it to you. So, because you can't read my mind. So I got some writer's block for this episode because this is literally the mid to late midpoint of the whole battle. Now everything is going to start conglomerating into like a single area, a single place. So you're gonna start seeing that happen. And stories about to tie up. It's you might think that because Sando got added in, that we're about to add in more narrative, but really Sando is just covering a front that Ayla can't be in right now. So that's not the whole reason Sando exists, but that is the reason you're being introduced to him here now and why he's there at the front of the column. So in any case, I got writer's block, had to get over that. And then I started losing my voice, which is a very weird experience. I mean, I've been through a lot of experiences where I've been like kind of weirdly injured, so it's always a surreal experience for a person as, I guess you might say, as like self-oriented or even self-centered as me, when my body won't respond to me correctly. So, you go to say something and your voice just doesn't come out. It's a weird-ass experience, for me at least. But, so that happened. That was no fun. Had to wait about 2 weeks, a little less, for that to completely scab over and heal. And that's like, okay, what is that? That's just bad luck. There's no reason to test, like, to dislike the episode or any problem with that in particular. It's just a thing that happens, right? Well, then I lost the script. Like, I'm not even quite sure how I lost it, because I keep these things, like, well, I don't keep them in a way that they've ever been lost before, and I still do not understand how that script was lost. It is a huge mystery to me, but in effect, the week of recording, I had to rewrite the script, which is why you'll see that it's a little... Man, let me tell you, if I didn't swear to myself that I wasn't gonna miss this deadline, I would have worked on this video more and like re-edited it because, and I don't mean just the video itself, the script, because I had to rewrite the whole script from memory of what I had written before, and I had to do it quickly in a rush. And oh my god, it is hard for me to describe to you guys how much I fucking hate having to rewrite the stuff I've already written, especially if it was good and it's just having to be rewritten for reasons like this. So I had to do that, and that was a huge pain in my butt, but I did it because I had this thing dead set where I wasn't going to allow anything else to get in the way of this video and its release, no matter what. So I did it. And then I record the raws, which is like 3 hours of raw takes, because like, for every 10 minutes of video you hear, there's like 20 or 30 minutes of me doing takes that are basically no good. Because the way that I record is that I say a sentence, basically, and I just repeat it over and over again until I've said it correctly. Because I'm pretty badly dyslexic. I've had a lifetime of experience trying to get around it, so I'm pretty good at managing it. But when it comes to reading scripts and reading them smoothly, it's difficult for me to read smoothly and speak out loud smoothly because of these reasons. Just results in me having to take several takes. So 3 hours of raw takes, gone. Gone. I don't know what happened to them. My system is set up so that these things can't happen. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's not gone. Maybe it's lost, though I've turned my computer inside out looking for this freaking thing. Because trust me, the last thing I want to do, especially after having just recovered my voice, is sit down and try to kill it again. So, oh man. So after like a day and a half of searching and burning that time that should have just been spent recording the video, well, I mean not recording, but editing the video recordings together, I was forced to conclude that I had to choose between just putting the video down and maybe writing a new script and doing a whole different thing, because God, you can't imagine how much I don't want to retread like ground, even to the point of writing an entirely new script and taking the story in a different direction, which is bad. This is my human emotion pushing against my professionalism as a writer, for whatever professionalism is worth in fan fiction. But the point is just that there was that hard temptation that was really calling to me. And I'll tell you, every single voice that you can think of that would make a person stop is like, oh, you've written enough of this. Oh, you're not getting paid for all this. Just everything came up. It's like, don't do this to yourself. Don't. But, you know, a man has his principles, as stupid as that might sound coming from a person just writing a thing on the internet. It's like I had decided that this crap was going to get published, that this was coming out. This is coming out. I'm not going to not do this. So I re-recorded the audio, and it came out to less than 3 hours this time. You know why? Because I have freaking practice now with a single script. I hate that I have practice with a single script. Like, the reason it takes me 3 hours to record these and make it sound anything near good is just because I haven't really read the script out loud before I begin doing it. Well, that and other reasons, but there you go. But now I have experience with this script, right? So you think, okay, that is pretty bad. That is pretty hardcore stuff. And it really is, because this is why I didn't give you guys this update. I updated you guys when I had my writer's block, and I updated you guys when I had my voice loss. But at the point where the script gets lost and the raw gets deleted or lost, it gets to the point where I'm like, if I update people on stuff like this and don't just job it and tank it, they're gonna think I'm making not mistakes, but excuses. Like, because what are the chances? Like, honestly, what are the chances that all this crap actually happens in a single production? It's really weird and unusual. So I decided I wasn't gonna fill you guys in on that, and I was just gonna job this as much as I could, and finish it, and then maybe talk about it like I'm doing here in the after talk for the video. And then it got deleted again. And not the same way. This time I actually know how it was deleted, and it was a real bonehead move that I made because I was basically like just sleepy. And it's one of those things where it's just because it was in a program. It doesn't go to your freaking recycle bin, so you can't recover it. And I'm like, that. Oh my God! Like, I feel what it's like to have been murdered, literally. Like not literally, literally murdered by my own hand. Like, committed literary suicide. Because I hated this script at this point, and now I have to voice it again. Oh my God, no, please. I've already voiced this thing too long. Oh my God. So then I had to re-record this stupid thing, and my goodness. It's funny though, because I'll be totally honest with you guys, it was easier to job it and to just do it the last time than it was the middle time. Because by the time it came around to the last time, I'm like, I don't care if I'm a zombie person by the time Monday comes around. Okay, I've already made the hard choice before this that it's gonna happen. And I've already put too much effort into this to not let it, not happen. So like, sunken cost fallacy suddenly like worked in my favor, and I was able to job this thing. But when you hear those recordings and you hear all that crap, I don't know what the hell was wrong with this. It's like the jinxed episode. Would you think it would be like episode 13? No, this is the jinxed episode, episode 21. No idea why. And holy cow, man. I read that script so much. Like, I tried so hard for this last reading to like make it sound good, which there was something wrong with my microphone. You'll notice it mess up a few times. But as I was reading all those lines that you heard in the last episode, I was hating every freaking second of it. Like, it was all I could do to not let that seep through into the performance. Which, having like looked at the reception to the video, it doesn't seem that it did, which is good, because my God, so many takes I had to discard for that last take because it just sounded like I was pissed. In scenes where it wouldn't have made sense for the narrator, the author, to sound that way. So, God, and this is just me venting. Like, sometimes a man's got to vent. This is a weird thing that happened to me. I still can't get over it. This can't happen again. I don't even know how it happened for the most part, but I'm taking new precautions and stuff because this has never happened. It's never come close to happening like this, but it can't happen again. Like, there can't even be a 1% chance of this happening because it's like, holy crap, man. This dragged me through the mud this freaking week. Dragged me through the freaking mud with this stupid episode. And it wasn't, it was a very unique problem. The fact that just... In any case, yeah, just Murphy's Law all over the place with this episode. My brain feels broken over this crap. Whatever. Hopefully the next episode will have nothing close to that kind of crazy bullshit. But that aside and out of the way, let me go ahead and run through a few of you guys' your Q&As, now that you've heard my whole spiel about the insanity of this episode. I'll go ahead and do some Q&As for this and the last 2 videos, because I think I was supposed to do that too. So let's see if I can do 5 here, 5 there, 5 there, how that works out. So let's take a quick look. I'll go ahead and reload this just in case more people have posted. Alright. Q&A, commission or fan art, even if it's just in the aftertalks. Commissions or fan art, even if it's just in the aftertalks. I don't know how you mean that. That's Dongface. Dongface. Are you asking me if I should ask for commissions or pay for more of them, rather, or if I should ask for fan art? It's funny. I think that in this aftertalk, you're actually going to see some of the bestiary art that I have made for my own work, which I will debut at some point after this series is probably done and concluded, because I don't want to conflate them, at least. But I don't have a lot of money. I had a budget at the start of this for Warhammer fan fan drawings and commissions that I would pay for, with the understanding that this series would have been less than half the length that it is now. So I used it all up, all the budget. I actually do have 1 or 2 more images coming for particular moments that are planned, but we haven't quite gotten there yet, and I thought that we would have gotten there by now, but there you go. I'm just going about it that way. But I can't really pay for more commissions as I am now. I have what I have. Fan art, if you guys want to send me fan art, feel free to send me fan art. That's 100% okay. I'm 100% alright with that. And send me explicit permission to use the fan art, because this is what I can't do. I can't ask for free art. I've had friends who are artists who have expressed to me what that's like, and how often they get it, and I can't in good conscience ask a person to put in effort that is comparable to what I do, just in the scape of a visual art, and do it for free. I'm doing this for free because, in my mind, this work needs to exist. The fact that IPs exist and capitalism is the way that we work most of our industries can't preclude something like this from existing in my mind. There isn't a justice if there is. It's a stupid thing I've got hung up in my head, but the point is that I'm doing this very much of my own free will. I don't feel right coercing or even asking people to give me free art. If you have art, if you've drawn art, if you felt inspired independently, then feel free to send it to me, and I'll definitely show it off. But as for more commissions, I'm just out of money. In any case, let's move on to the next one. So, Spook. Always good to see you, Spook. So let's see here, Q&A. I'm just putting this as a reminder for you to give me the numbers, the names of the regiments, and okay, let me go ahead and say this here. I can't give you those numbers right now, in large part because while I have a plan, and I have these numbers, and I have a plan for how to use them, what I've seen as I've been writing this out is that sometimes things shift around. And if I give you those numbers, I'm dedicating to those numbers. And I may want more or less. It depends on what the narrative calls for. So I am working with a baseline of what is needed, but I'm also not an actual strategist, nor am I a logistician or a person who's really aware of war outside of fiction, really. You see what I'm saying? So while I consider myself kind of a learned person, I'm not learned enough to exert and imply those numbers with a great enough amount of certainty to say, okay, this is where I want it to be, and it can't change from here. So for that reason, I will tell you that I have ballparks. I actually have precise numbers for everything here, but I can't dedicate to those precise numbers because I myself am a goober and may not know or not know what we need or don't need. So that's why I can't really fill in those numbers. In any case, and you're asking for the regiments and chapters, and let's just leave that to see what gets revealed. Because again, if I give you what regiments are here, I'm also dedicating to what regiments aren't. And if I give you what regiments are here and don't have time to put them in, or the narrative shifts, then it feels like I've gypped you, because I promised you or told you that these regiments were involved, but they never came into the fore. And again, those are all commitments that I feel like an 80 or 70% chance that I can make and fulfill on them, but because there's a 30 or 40% chance that I can't, or 30 or 20% chance, that's just too high for me to make those commitments and come out with egg on my face over that kind of thing. So for numbers and those kinds of deployments, it'll just have to be sort of a thing you have to wait for the box to be open to find out. So let's go ahead to the next piece. Also, I have one other question. Space battles in Warhammer 40K are usually shown to take place over millions of kilometers, while battles in Star Wars seem to take place over a few hundred or dozen kilometers. How will you compare this discrepancy? Will you scale up Star Wars ship pivot? Or no, actually, you'll notice that I didn't do those things. We already had the ship battle at the start of the series, and that was a huge problem that the Republic had to confront, was the limited range of their weapons. And it's not even the case that the weapons can't go out that far. They just can't go out that far fast enough to catch the enemy in transit. So you will notice that far before the Republic fleet was able to open fire and begin their salvos, the Imperial fleet had already begun firing. And yes, while some of those lance cannons that you saw being fired from the very beginning were like, I think they're called God's Bane or other kinds of extremely long-ranged las cannons, in particular, those open fire first just because that's the protocol, but a lot of weapons open fire at very high range. It is just the fact that in 40K, we are shown this to be the case. And hey, you know what? It's possible that there will now be visual mediums that come into 40K because of what GW is doing that will show us, because of cinematics and stuff, that Warhammer 40K battles aren't just waged at super high lengths. I mean, I'll say this. Warhammer battles has been shown to us both in the literature and in cutscenes of existing games and other things that they can take place at massive distance, and they can take place at the exact same distances or closer that Star Wars ships are used to functioning at. Warhammer 40K ships have ramming capacities, and they don't have those capacities because they don't get close to each other. So it's not quite as bad as all that, but definitely that will be noticed, and I'm not going to scale up or scale anything down. The Republic is going to have to examine this problem and think up of a solution, a way of getting around it. And hey, those of you who know Thrawn and who know other Republic tacticians who have managed to do some pretty cool shit with their ships will probably start to figure out how the Republic begins to solve this issue. So let's go ahead and move down from there. Alright, so the next one is Captain General Kitten. Let's see. Q&A. Hi there. I have a question for what will happen if orcs against the Separatists. As we know, orcs love Daka, but they suck at aiming and really stupid. So the battle droids, but they share the same thing with the thing was that they got numbers. P.S. Will you have any plan of making a story for Orks vs Separatists? Currently, no. If I was going to do Orks vs Separatists, I'd basically have to make its own setting for it, just because there's no way of making Orks vs Separatists. It'd be more like Orks vs Separatists vs Imperium, because the Imperium is here, and the Imperium is extremely, extremely hostile to the Separatists, much more than the Orks ever would be. The Orks obviously wouldn't be fighting the Separatists. They would just be doing what they're normally doing. Fighting everyone in general. Maybe making alliances of convenience when they think that defeat is basically looming or inevitable. But typically speaking, the Orks don't differentiate their enemies from each other outside of what they look like, which is typically why when Orks describe other factions, they typically describe them, not always, but typically via a physical feature, because that's all that really, they're not, most orcs, even orc commanders, barely parse the difference between diplomacy, just talking and commanding, and the fact that there's different aliens that they're fighting. They do parse those differences, but just barely. The standard orc boy doesn't, and the standard orc boss that isn't big enough to run a whole WoW doesn't. So that's kind of why that's sort of it would be just chaos, but not the chaos that is brewing currently. So let's take a look here. Histovan. So, Histovan, Q&A. 1. Will the Chaos Gods take an interest in the Crusade fleet that has been flung so far away? And will Celestials like Wutzek and the Ones are powerful? You're going to have to wait to see how the Bedlam spirits, the Wills, the Ones, the Ones are dead right now, but you're going to have to wait to see what the powerful celestial forces of Star Wars, who basically hang in the background of Legends most of the time, how they react to this, if they react at all. Because remember, in the face of this crap, a not necessarily unwise reaction would be to just shut up and stay quiet and stay out of the way. I mean, the Imperium is definitely the first god-killer faction that is a government that has entered the Star Wars galaxy. The Republic has never really been in that capacity. Not really. Neither has the Sith Empire, really, mostly because it's too busy eating itself. So let's take a look here. Question 2. Will there be a schism in the Mechanicus forces over the study of Star Wars technology and droids, or C-82's revelation? Okay, so the Mechanicus is basically a technological allegory. I love this. I mean, I'm not even necessarily like really Catholic or anything. I just love that they did this. The Mechanicus is the Catholic Church, and the Imperium is the Holy Roman Empire. And this is really obvious if you begin to take apart the analogies and like the way that everything is set up. But how do I say this? It's like division and schisms are the Mechanicus' whole thing. When you look into the Mechanicus' history, only recently is it, like relatively recently, is it that they're all about Necrons, and it's sort of Necron versus Mechanicus, and the Mechanicus taking this big interest and all this crap. And I guess that's sort of representative of, it could be representative of how the Catholic Church kind of deals with Islam and the holy wars they have against them. Because it's funny, because the Mechanicus is becoming Necrons. I mean, it might be because of the Void Dragon's influence, which would be really funny, because it's like Islam worships the same God as Catholicism worships, just under really different understandings, sects, and practices, and with a different understanding of where important people factor into the history of the religion. If the Void Dragon is quote-unquote God and is sitting in Mars and is causing the quote-unquote, Mechanicus Catholic Church to be risen, but first caused the Necrons to rise in the same exact way, it's almost like they're the same they're two different religions worshiping the same God and coming out to heinously similar results, while simultaneously hating the fucking shit out of each other and trying to destroy each other at nearly every turn. And every time they don't, every time some Mechanicus guy's like, ooh, maybe we use some Necron stuff for this, it's like a huge schism. And there you go. So my whole point is that, my bad, I'm getting off my whole point. My whole point was that before we got the Necrons involved in that, and we can examine that later, I've only ever thought of it that way just now, so it's interesting. Maybe I'm totally off base, but maybe I'm not. But the whole thing about the Mechanicus has been internal schisms, has always been like how Protestantism is coming out of Catholicism, how Catholicism throughout most of its history has been based and founded around trying to unify Christianity by preventing division and by keeping everything unified. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but Catholic and Catholic, what that word means is universal. That's the original meaning of that word. The original meaning of the Catholic Church is the universal church. It was an attempt by Constantine and the men he had around him to create a unified new Roman religion to center around, and basically that was all basically decided at the Council of Nicaea, the real Council of Nicaea, not the Warhammer 40K Council of Nicaea, where very different things were decided, and they were all bad ideas. So, in any case, my point to that is, yes, expect there to be schisms in the Mechanicus. Heck, there could be a universe in which C-82 does not in any way like Ahsoka or care about Xenos or in any way even see that there could be anything that is wholly or related about this universe, and there is no Mechanicus person at all that is in any way happy with Star Wars technology, and there would still be schisms. That's the funny part about that. Like, there's no way to get around it. The Mechanicus is made out of this crap. What is and isn't tech heresy isn't even really agreed upon between different Forge worlds that are all on the same side. It just is that case. I mean, you even have examples of, like, Belisarius Cawl getting apprehended during the Great Crusade, and his memcore is non-standard but legal, but non-standard, and that is immediately declared tech heresy by the dudes who find him, even though they're all on the same side. And, there you go. But in any case, moving on from that. With the Inquisitor clearly being more radical than Puritan, is it possible he will find his way to Korriban? All things are possible. All things are possible. Through chaos. In any case, let's see here. Will there be a scene of Tech Marine Taslian informing the chapter master of what he learned from Echo's mind? Potentially, but Taslian is separate right now from the rest of his fleet, largely because the Crimson Razors have split up to hit several targets simultaneously. You better believe the Crimson Razors are jobbing. They are definitely all about work, get that shit done, work that murder. So they're out there doing what they gotta do. The Skywatch are holding back, they're watching, they're scouting, they're appraising, and they're setting up their structures, and they're setting up their power base. But the Crimson Razors are just one thing. They are Space Marines, and they don't, for even a second, think of themselves as actual leaders of a faction in that way. They are warriors. They are weapons, and they know it, and they embrace it, as you can probably tell from our librarian friend here. So then, let's go ahead and move down. Q&A repost. Will you be posting all the commissioned art somewhere? Will you post a transcript somewhere? Or will you make them available? Will you check in again with the Skywatch and their colonization before Season 1? Okay, so these are... Oh, wow, okay, these questions go on. Alrighty. Yo, what is Vong.imo? Are you guys... What is this thing? I mean, it's like you guys just quote random pieces of my thing. I'm gonna remove these. I don't know what these are. If someone wants to explain it to me, then I might let them stay up, but I have no idea. That looks like spam to me. Alright, back to the question of Men of 1,000, your question. So, let's begin with the first one. Will you be posting all the commissioned art somewhere? Yes. Check my Reddit. If you go to my Reddit and check my posts, you will find all of the commissioned art in there. And from there, you are free to download it and share it and keep it for yourself. That art is for the community. It's for everybody. Will you post the transcript somewhere? Yes, I will eventually. I plan to actually finish the series first, and then I'm going to go through and edit it, because all of this stuff is first draft, which is why it can be a little embarrassing for me to actually read it sometimes, because I reuse words I shouldn't, and I end up being repetitive with certain phrases that I don't like to be repetitive, but it's all first draft. I don't have enough time between releases to get a comprehensive second draft out. So before I release it, what I want to do is finish all this. I mean, before I release just the transcript, I want to finish all this, then give myself maybe a few months or whatever to... Who knows how long it'll take, because this is getting so long at this point, like as long as a novel is really, but I will take a while to then go through it, and once I've gone through it, I'm going to edit it and pretty it up, and then I'll put it on the favorite fanfiction website. If you guys want to recommend to me a website where I can post a fanfiction transcript, let me know. I'm so out of the standard community. I'm so out of the standard community that that this was the first place I really thought to put it, was on YouTube. In any case, let's go ahead. I mean, I also thought about putting it on Reddit, but Reddit is so hostile. My God, I feel so sorry for any creator who depends on Reddit for any kind of recognition or good feeling or anything, because Reddit is... I mean, I'll say this, it's not the most hostile place I've ever been online, because I've been on 4chan and places like that, but God, I'll say this, if you're ever depressed or feeling even a little bit suicidal, do not go to Reddit. Do not talk to anybody on Reddit. You might be able to get away with that crap anywhere else, and talk to a good person, but fuck, even good people treat you like shit on Reddit. My bad. I'm ranting right now. Probably built up crap from other things, but in any case, let's move on from that. Will we check in again with the Skywatch and their colonization before the end of Season 1? Yes, we will. Will the Tempered Hands get their own history and episode like the Skywatch? They did get their own episode, I think, and it's even called the Crimson Razors, I think. As for will they get their own history? Maybe. You know, when I started writing out the history for the Skywatch and even the history for the Calambians, I did it on a burst of inspiration, but those things may never get completed. I mean, I know what they are, and I know what they are in my head, but they're not essential for the work, and they are a lot of work to make and post up. When the inspiration takes you and you can just do it effortlessly, then it's like, okay, that's a treat for all of us. But the only thing I'm going to dedicate to finishing right at this moment is Season 1. And I will go ahead and take... Man, my phone is just going off. I thought I'd silenced it. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So, the only thing I'm going to dedicate to finishing is Season 1 right now, because it's the only thing I can really honestly promise. Because, I'll say this, I do feel very good that I'm getting this thing out of my system, and that I'm finally completing this work that has been twirling around inside my head for oh so long. But this can't be a job, not unless I'm able to get paid for it, and obviously nobody can be paid for fan fictions. I can open up a Patreon, but frankly, I'm kind of terrified that if I do open up a Patreon, it will cause this to cross some kind of line. And I don't want to cross that line. Because part of the reason I am willing to dedicate to finishing at least Season 1 is because going into this, I knew that I wouldn't be paid for it, and I knew that I wouldn't get anything for it, and that I would actually spend a lot, hundreds of my own dollars to make this the way that I wanted it, and potentially get very little or nothing back. Now, a few of you guys actually have donated to me through PayPal, which I didn't even know. God, it's been years since I even touched my PayPal account, so I didn't even remember that I had one. But that kind of stuff helped a lot. It did help me create more art, which I guess maybe I should. It's funny because I don't even feel right taking profit from this. You see what I'm saying? Even donated profit. It's probably just a hang-up that I have that isn't based on anything super logical. But how do I say it? It's just. This is just supposed to be what it is. I don't want to jeopardize this being up. I would like this to just exist. It deserves to exist, you know? I am a huge, huge fan of mythology, of human history told through stories. And what I find is that until the advent of capitalism, which I'm not an anti-capitalist, by the way, I'm going to say something critical about capitalism here. It doesn't mean that I don't think that it's definitely a more convenient, better, and efficient system than we've had in the past, but the way that we conduct it, especially with the idea of independent properties and protected things, it wouldn't be so bad if those things expired at some point. And I understand why authors, I mean, trust me, I'm an author. I understand why you want to protect your independent property and not let other people profit off of it. But what it does do is stifle what we've been doing all of our human history, which is combining stories, making new stories, like not creating borders where they don't exist. You know, one of my favorite things about the Greek pantheon is the raw amount of crossover that you see in the Greek pantheon. Heck, man, there was a time there's a story about the Greek gods where they are attacked by this tremendous being. What was it? It was Thanatos? No, Thanatos is like the Grim Reaper. It was I forget what his name was. I think it's named after like a storm, like Cyclonus or Tempestus or something like that. He was a monster. He was like a titan that was just like the titan of monsters or something. He came after the titan rebellion against the gods, or the fight against the gods. And my whole point about mentioning that is just this. So this guy comes up to the Mount Olympus and is threatening everybody, and all the Greek gods run away. So low-key, the story hardcore suggests, if not outright confirms, that the Greek gods ran away from Mount Olympus, turned into animals to escape, and then spent all their time in Egypt, and that's where all the Egyptian gods come from, which of course is not canon to the Egyptian gods, but That's so cool. I like that somebody had the balls to say, well, there are gods over here and gods over there. They might all be different gods, but what if they were the same god? And then made up a story about it. I like that, you know, the way that human mythology does that. Like, if another example, you know, we go to King Arthur. King Arthur is not one man. The moment you begin trying, I say trying because it's so hard, because it's so wacky, but when you begin trying to parse the history of Britain and the legends of King Arthur, which are all heavily intermingled, you begin to realize that King Arthur is like 8 or 9 different heroes from different Welsh and Irish and Saxon mythologies and stories that have all been renamed Arthur, and all of their stories and all their rep got given over to one guy, which is why King Arthur is like a Jesus figure and eventually became too big a deal to even take place in his own stories and started like appearing in other people's stories instead, because he became the G from having had this accumulation. These things aren't possible with independent properties, at least not possible profitably. Now, I'm willing to accept that. I'm willing to accept that they're not possible profitably, but they should be possible. It is extremely, even existentially depressing to me that this may not exist just because of this system. So for me, this has to come out. That's my whole rant about that. Let's see here. Do you play Warhammer 40K? I do, but do you mean the tabletop? I don't play the tabletop. I don't have money for it. Actually, you know, the funniest thing is, when I had my money, I had a sort of a, maybe I'll go into this at some point in my history, but I had a really harrowing experience prior to starting this series that sort of kicked my butt into gear to make things happen while I'm still here. And one of the things that had happened was that this money that I had saved up was like, okay, do I want to buy buy a Warhammer army, maybe a painted Warhammer army, or maybe an unpainted Warhammer army and paint them all myself? That was part of what that money could have been for. And I decided, no. I'm not just going to play this game. I don't want this to be just for me. This needs to be a bigger thing. And so I decided to go with what I went with. So no, I don't actually play the Warhammer 40K tabletop. I do love Dawn of War, and I do love reading Black Library. I've also played a lot of other Warhammer 40K games, some of which I've liked, some of which I haven't liked. I have to say, I actually do like, Space Hulk a lot. The architecture, walking around those rooms and holding the weapons and stuff, just being in that environment is super badass. But yeah, there you go. Let me go ahead and see. What genre will your universe be in, and what type of story? This is for your custom writing. Ah, you'll see. I plan to tell more than one story. Though, a quick spoiler, I'll say this. I do plan to start somewhere in fantasy. Fantasy is my root. I grew up raised on the milk of Tolkien, and therefore, that is where I intend to go to begin with. So let's see here. Are the Skywatch and the Crimson Razors in contact with each other? Yes, they are in contact with each other. Indeed. Why is Padme going to Axum? You'll have to see. What is going to do there, especially if the Jedi lose? You'll have to see. Is the Burning Skull and the Tempered Hands heraldry a reference to Manus, the Legion of the Damned? You guys are fucking sharp. You guys are fucking sharp. You know what? It's probably me being lame and not realizing that you guys are a bit sharper than I give you credit for. But yeah, maybe it is. So let's see here. So, magnetically interlocking blades and gears, huh? Will Kali give... Oh, my bad. I'm just reading the next... I'm just reading the next... just reading the next comment. Let's see here. Actually, how many have I read already? Because I think I've been on here for a good minute. I'll go ahead and read one more. So let's go to... Crypto Penguin. Will the Yuuzhan Vong come into this story later? Maybe. If the Jedi and Sith were given a full explanation specifically about who and what the God Emperor is, these beings who have the ability to directly control the Force and actually becoming its master. Wait. About who and what the God Emperor is. If the Jedi and the Sith were ever given a full explanation specifically about what the God Emperor and the God Chaos are, how would they react to these entities? Okay. wow, this is probably gonna be the last question. I'm sorry, guys, that we're in the other videos. I'm probably not gonna be able to get to them because this one is gonna probably eat time. All right, so if they were given a full explanation, well, the problem here is this: they don't have to believe anything that they're told, and the Jedi, especially, and even the Sith, honestly, because they're not better. They're just honest. The Jedi delude themselves a lot, like all the time. And this is canonical. In fact, if you want to look at the top best example of this, when Yoda is called to the Force Priestesses by the spirit of Qui-Gon Jinn, he confides this in the Jedi. And while they do not immediately denounce, deny, or reject what he has said, they come at it with an enormous amount of skepticism, and once they begin their meditation, though they do sit there and meditate dead ass for like a whole day or more, they sitting there and examining Yoda's memories and everything, or doing whatever it was they were doing for that long, they still came to the conclusion that it was more likely that Master Yoda was deluded than that somebody had existed in the Force as a ghost. And that was almost unanimous in the council, to the point that Yoda needed to have Anakin's help to get away from them and go to the Force Priestesses, and to the point that I believe Yoda did not feel confident enough revealing to the rest of the Jedi Council what he had learned from the Force Priestesses, because Yoda, in the course of his training to become a Force ghost and to learn the technique, essentially learns everything. He learns what the Sith are going to do. He doesn't know that Order 66 is how it's going to happen, but he really should. He knew that these Sith had created an army for them, that their enemies had made an army for them. He knew from those visions that the Jedi were going to be destroyed by it. He knew that it was going to be a betrayal that comes from within, that comes from the Republic. He understood all these things, and he didn't act to prevent them. Now, I think there's a lot of bullshit on Yoda's part for that, but if we give him the benefit of the doubt, which we should, because he's like a wise 800-year-old Master Jedi, the reason he wouldn't is because he would have foreseen that going to the Jedi Council and trying to tell them this would have only made them doubt him, not the other things, and that he may have only exacerbated the problem, if that was even possible, than actually helped to alleviate it. I disagree with him, but this is probably the reason he came to these conclusions. Otherwise, he would have just responsibly gone to the rest of the Jedi Council and been like, hey guys, we need to start pulling the Jedi, now that the war is coming to a close, we need to start hiding everybody, pulling back and preparing for a cataclysmic event that I have foreseen. And, if they were mature and shit, they would have been like, well, Yoda has not really been wrong in 800 years, and he's the Grand Master for a good goddamn reason, so we should probably take him seriously and deal with him being wrong if he is wrong after the fact, but, take him seriously for now. Yoda didn't have confidence that shit would happen. Yoda had confidence that Mace Windu would be like, no, we need to take over the courts, and I'm a politician, basically, and blah, 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 and yeah, there you go. So, they don't have to agree with anything that they hear or are told. But if we had an example where, and the same thing goes for the Sith, by the way, same damn thing. So if we had an example where we have Palpatine sitting in a room, and by the way, and this is also going to be an explanation, I'll try to sum this up, the rule of two never made any sense. The idea of the Sith getting stronger by it instead of weaker when they're assassinating each other before they can ever learn all of their secrets, it never made any sense. The idea that the Sith would willingly pass on all their knowledge to an apprentice at no benefit to themselves makes no sense. None of that ever made sense. Apprentices to Sith Masters, for the most part, have been looked at as assassins and tools, and never as actual successors if they're doing it right, if the Sith Lord is doing it right. So, the retcon, or rather the clarification that we got in, what was it? It was The Rise of Skywalker. In my opinion, the only good thing that came out of that movie, the only good thing that came out of The Rise of Skywalker, is the revelation that the way the rule of two works is that the Sith possess each other. That no knowledge is lost, really, because when one Sith assassinates the other, the older Sith possesses the body of the younger and takes on their personality, but effectively, when Palpatine is like, I am all the Sith, he is all the Sith, and that's great. That's good. I like that. I don't like anything else about the movie, But this rhymes very well with what we've seen in Legends. It even makes sense as to why Darth Bane was desperate to have Darth Zana kill him and not just see him die of old age. Darth Bane loved Darth Zana, perhaps like a daughter or perhaps like something more, but they had a very intimate relationship with each other despite the fact that they were Sith. And Darth Bane desperately wanted Darth Zana to not just let him pass and die peacefully. And it wasn't just about dying violently either. He could go and kill himself against Jedi if that was what he was really after. No, Darth Bane needed Darth Zana to kill him personally in single combat. And now we know why. We know why he was desperate for it. We knew why he was unwilling to compromise. We even know why he was unwilling to grow weaker. Like why he was like, you have to do it now because now I'm aging and I'm only getting weaker, and so it has to be done now. We know why. He's trying to save himself. He's a Sith. He's fallen to the dark side. He's selfish. Even when he's in love, he's ultimately selfish. So, my point is just this. So Sidious sitting in this room, this Sidious that we're talking about, the canonical Sidious, he isn't just Sheev Palpatine. He is Sheev Palpatine, and he acts in that persona in most ways, but he is also every Sith that has come before, which is why he is so powerful in regards to Star Wars. So he's sitting in this room, Sheev and all the Sith inside of one body, more or less a single personality, and the Emperor walks in. So what Sheev would see immediately is the next apprentice. He would try desperately after confirming how powerful the Emperor is, which probably wouldn't actually take a physical demonstration of any kind. He would try to convince the Emperor that he is very powerful, maybe even more powerful than he himself is, but that he could be more powerful if he embraced the way of the Sith, that he could gain power never before seen if he did this. He would be desperate to teach the Emperor the ways of the Sith, to make the Emperor his apprentice even if he is technically more powerful, and then to be killed by him so that he can then flow into the Emperor and, in theory, become the next one true Sith, the Emperor. The Emperor is all too aware of what possession is. He is all too aware of what the dark side really is. It's just nascent daemons making you do shit that feeds them, which is why, you know, you have actions that are fueled by the dark side and actions that are just fueled by natural passion. He's aware of these things. The Emperor wouldn't for even a second concede or want to be an apprentice to Sidious. Not only that, but he probably wouldn't have very much to gain. The techniques used by the dark side and by the Sith are eminently self-destructive, and that's literally how they all die. They destroy themselves because they can't turn Force Lightning off once they turn it on. So he would turn that down. This would probably cause Palpatine to go into powerful self-denial or delusion or rage. He'd go one of three ways: the things that I just mentioned, or he'd decide to go for the long game and think something up. And I don't really know where he would go at this point, because we don't have a lot of examples of Palpatine encountering people that he has to appease or who are more powerful than him. He may very well go straight into toady mode, where he's like, okay, I'm gonna serve you. I don't care what it is. You know, alright, you don't gotta be Sith, man. Alright, put the sword down. I'm gonna be your servant from now on, because you're clearly more powerful, and my Sith religion tells me that might makes right. And then secretly, while he's serving the Emperor and doing whatever it is task he's going about doing, he'd be trying to leverage himself into getting whatever power the Emperor has and learning all that strength for himself, and potentially still subverting the Emperor into the way of the Sith. So those are that reaction for Palpatine. If you had the Jedi Council, the Jedi High Council, because the thing is that when you ask me how the Jedi would react, it's hard to tell you that, because the Jedi are all individual people, and the Sith are all one guy. If you had the Jedi High Council in a room, and they were told, like, they were in a council, and then the guy comes in, and he's like, hey, there's a guy that's an emperor from a different galaxy, and he's about to make diplomatic contact with the Republic, but before he makes diplomatic contact with the Republic, he wants to meet with you guys because he's a Force user, and you guys are Force users, and he wants to take your measure and stuff. So he's going to be in here in a minute or two, so we're just letting you guys know that he's going to come meet you. And they're like, okay, we're going to meet this guy, Emperor, whatever. And he walks in on them, which, of course, the Emperor is like this, he's like a literal giant, you know, so he probably wouldn't even fit without fucking man-seeing himself into a smaller form, but he walks into the room, and provided he isn't trying to hide what he is, he's like a walking astronomicon. Obviously, he isn't that powerful without the chair, As in, like, the beacon isn't viewable from nearly every place in the galaxy if he's not sitting on the Golden Throne. But if you are in the same room as him, hell, if you're on the same planet as him, there is a miniature Astronomicon walking around unless he's trying to hide it. So he'd walk in and that would just be on display. Hell, they would know that he's there well beforehand if he's not hiding it, but there you go. The Jedi would immediately want to test him. Not to become a Jedi or anything. Obviously, the Emperor is far, far too old and too practiced and too into himself and into what he's doing to be a Jedi or to be inducted into the Jedi Order as they are right now. Previous Jedi Orders were much more willing to accept anybody into the Order as long as they were willing to learn the ways of the Jedi. Not so with the modern Order. So, what they would want to test him for is to see if he's a Darksider. It's like, okay, this guy's got this incredible, powerful Force essence. He's probably the Chosen One or something similar, because he's definitely extremely powerful. We have to make sure he's not a Darksider. And what they would discover is kind of an odd thing. So, the dark side is called to you by actions of passion and typically actions of evil and stuff like that, right? So we have things that are like that. A good example of that is like Anakin killing the Sand People. Yes, okay, here's a great example. So we have Anakin killing the Sand People and Anakin choking Padme. Two different actions that both feed upon and fuel the dark side. However, let's imagine a universe now in which the dark side doesn't exist, and that influence is entirely negated, okay? Anakin might still have killed all the Sand People. That was not necessarily an action, that was the dark side enforcing or influencing him at that point. Like, it is possible for a man to see his dying, tortured mother, and then to feel so much rage and indignation and desire for vengeance that he goes out and has his vengeance, and the dark side doesn't need to factor into that. That could just be something that happens. But then we have him on Mustafar, where Padme comes out and he begins to force choke her and accuse her of having brought Obi-Wan here to kill him. Obviously, Anakin is under the sway of the dark side at this point. Not only are his eyes blazing Sith, but aside from that, what he's doing is totally illogical. It is obviously much more likely that Padme either brought Obi-Wan expecting him to help mitigate you down because you're best fucking friends and literally like the only other person close to him aside from herself, or that Obi-Wan snuck aboard the ship, didn't reveal to her that he was there, and followed her knowing that she would lead him straight to Anakin. There are many other explanations as to Obi-Wan being there that don't involve him believing that Padme has betrayed him. This is pure dark side influence. This is the dark side grabbing Anakin and pulling him down to where he wouldn't otherwise be. So back to the Emperor. What they would find with the Emperor is that the Emperor is all too capable and willing even to commit atrocities, genocides, things that are definitely not light side, not compassionate, not like that. However, they would not be able to find even the remotest amount of evidence that the Emperor himself is influenced by the dark side. In fact, the Emperor takes great pains to immunize himself and other psychers that he comes in contact with from the malign entities of the warp and from the darker influences of the warp. Whenever a person in 40K who has been soul-bound to the Emperor or anything like that does something evil, it is not implied that this is because they're being influenced by chaos or by the warp. It's implied that this is because they are humans of a flaw, and this is what is carrying it out. And this is true. In the Imperium, the dark side, although it is used a lot, is not mastered to almost anyone, because the dark side is hated and feared and, frankly, almost abused, which I guess it really likes. The dark side is kind of a kinky bitch that way, but the idea is just that while the Emperor and Space Marine librarians and Primaris Psychers may use the dark side constantly, they actively fight against its influence. They know that it's there. They don't even know that it's possible to use the warp at all and not have that influence there. So for them, it's not even parsing away the dark side from the light side. It's just the warp is evil. When you use it, you have to make sure it doesn't make you evil. So they would find this guy with this weird set. And the problem is that the Jedi have not really parsed out themselves that there is necessarily a difference. When you see the Jedi talk, when you see the way they act, when you see the way they philosophize, you come to the understanding that they almost don't think that people exist. Like, people are just vessels for the Force. And there's different amounts of Force in each vessel, which determines how well you are, how good you are at using the Force. And then there's also how much of a particular element of the Force is within you, which is the result of actions that you've taken or that have been taken around you. You know, how much of the dark side is in you, how much of the light side is in you. And your actions are both the triggers for these things and results of these things in a very cyclical pattern, you know? Seeing this cyclical pattern being broken and outright defied is not something the Jedi believe can be done. That's why they're categorically against things like marriage and against things like killing, though they're less against this than marriage apparently, but against killing helpless prisoners, no matter what their disposition or circumstance. If they are helpless, you are not supposed to kill them, because they don't believe that you can take these actions independent of the dark side. Doing one means the other. And here in the Emperor, they would have a super empirical example of not only that happening, where one is doing both, like, you know, he is doing an action that would normally prompt the dark side and also shrugging the dark side off, and is showing that there's only correlation, not causality between them, but is also so much more powerful than they themselves are, to a degree that is outright staggering. Like, the Emperor is nearly... If the Emperor were walking on a planet with you, it would be difficult to tell the difference between the Emperor and one of the Ones. I mean, there may be a difference. The Ones and their upper limits of their powers are hard to quantify and understand, and they can only be killed via very specific weapons that they themselves have made. But at the same time, the Emperor could very well be, on a personal level, even more powerful than the Ones. If the Emperor came before the Father and decided to battle him, I believe that there would be a battle. Whereas when Anakin tried the same thing, the Father just took Anakin's lightsaber in his hand and sheathed it for him, which is not even something that you knew could happen with lightsabers. So it would cause a pretty crazy philosophical schism within the Order. And I want to say that it wouldn't be a schism. I want to say it would only be a debate. But with people like Mace Windu on board, and with people like Yoda on board, and with people like Anakin on board, and with people like Obi-Wan on board, there's just too much. That's the biggest problem with the Jedi Order at the time of the Clone Wars, is that they've made all these rules and sacrifices, and they don't get to benefit from any of them, because they still defy them too much. But not just that, because they just don't... They have missed... Like, they miss the forest for the trees. They just don't... They don't get that it's not just about these rules. And so they've become invested. They've become attached. They've become everything they weren't supposed to be. And worst of all, they don't even realize it. And this is why it's such a poignant moment for Anakin when Mace Windu tells him he's too dangerous to be kept alive. And then he turns to the dark side and cuts off Mace Windu's hand. Why? Because Palpatine had told him the same thing in regards to Dooku. And that just revealed to him that the Jedi weren't so different from the Sith at all, that they were just playing their own game. And frankly, though Sidious is evil, he is right in this case. He's made right by the folly of Mace Windu and powerful Jedi like him, who have conflated their influence in the Republic with what it means to be a Jedi. But there you go with that. So that was a long one, wasn't it? Let's see where we're at here. Alright, let's finish up your last question. Just how shocked and pissed will the Jedi/Sith be when they find out that the Imperial FTL is traveling through the Force Warp? It would be funny to see them so pissed when they realize that while they spent all their lives trying to be one with the Force, while the Imperium already have a scientific way to directly enter the Force Warp, but instead use it for more mundane means. Yeah, so yeah, this is going to be pretty funny, because the Imperium has effectively created a technological means by which to open warp gates, and we see that this is possible in Star Wars. Darth Maul creates one of these, and it's fantastic. Look up Darth Maul. He's nothing but fun if you're a fan of the Sith. But yeah, the Jedi and the Sith both work really hard to make portals into the Force. Now I'll say this: the Jedi have literally made like a webway, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and look up the the Jedi Temple on Lothal that is effectively a webway. It might even be better than a webway because it has the capacity to traverse and pierce time as well as space. Though, in theory, the webway should do that too. The warp is never really friendly with chronology or time. And the webway is built into it. But there you go. So, we do have examples of those things, but the modern Jedi have lost all of that. The modern Sith have, well, they haven't lost it, but they're not interested in it. Sidious is the modern Sith, and he's not trying to make portals into the Force. He doesn't really stand to gain much from that. So, it would be very interesting for them when they find that out. However, there is one parallel. They would actually know already of one species, not species, one order. Well, actually, I guess they kind of are a species. The Ang-Ti are a specific species as well as an order of monks. The Ang-Ti monks use this form of travel as well, but they don't use it with technology. The Ang-Ti monks have realized the method of using the Force that allows them to use warp travel, and it's actually even better than what you see the Imperium using. The Ang-Ti monks have the most perfect form of warp travel imaginable, and the only thing that could fuck it up is needing to have Geller fields, which they don't currently need to have in the Star Wars universe. The Ang-Ti monks can basically just fold space their entire ships and travel through the Force and instantaneously appear wherever they want to go. And they have a lot of control over that. They don't appear before they left, and they don't appear 1,000 years after. So they may go to the Ang-Ti monks for more knowledge on how this works. Or they may not. Honestly, the only people who would really even know about the Ang-Ti monks are the Jedi who have been in the library, like Jocasta knew, for most of their lives. Because, well, the Jedi maintain peaceful relations with the Ang-Ti monks. The Jedi are so far up their own asses that they typically don't keep up to date with a lot of the other Force traditions in the galaxy. They just see them as inferior. Like, you guys are all just proto-Jedi, and eventually, one day, if you're not Darksiders, you'll come around to our way of thinking. It's a really, really elitist way of thinking, and it may result in them not even thinking to look this way, as they didn't during the Clone Wars. I mean, my god, you look at how much of a conflict the Clone Wars got into, and the Jedi didn't even think to go looking for any of the other Force traditions. They just ended up fighting the ones that joined the Separatists. So there you go. Let's see here. Okay, I think that was the last question. Woo! Okay, I think this is also one of the longest Q&As, which is fitting, right? Yeah, for the longest video to date. All right, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead, take a break, start getting ready to write the next piece. Next time, we will see more and more of the battle folding into one location, and for those of you that have been waiting for the arrival of the Tempest, know that your scions are on the horizon. So, until then, I'll see you next time.